What up? Not too long ago, I was streaming on Twitch like I do, and D2 got hit with routine downtime from Bungie. We had a couple hours to kill, and while we were waiting for the servers to come back online, my chat recommended I check out a recent video from my buddy Ascendant Nomad, which talked about a potential problem in D2. Here are my thoughts. Enjoy.
Since Beyond Light, there has been 340 unique weapons released in Destiny 2, and almost none of them really matter. Between the uninteresting looking reskins, the reprisal of old weapons with modern twists, and the fact that build crafting around never-ending abilities is just genuinely way more fun, is it any wonder that people are just sort of done with weapons right now? I've spent the last 2
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's part of it also is something we were talking about the other day, which is the death of sunsetting, which is a whole other kettle of worms altogether. I mean, some people are now arguing that sunsetting was probably good for the game because, perfect example, Festival of the Lost coming out today, and we have a new grenade launcher coming out, which basically to me is dead on arrival because the Cataphract outranks it in every conceivable way, right? So like, I already don't care about the new grenade launcher coming in Festival of the Lost. Maybe there was something to sunsetting. I don't know, but let's continue watching.
2 years reviewing weapons in Destiny 2, and I've seen firsthand how the tone of all of your comments under my videos has shifted. It's gone from, damn, I can't wait to give this a try, to, damn, did Bungie pay you to like this weapon? What's happened in the last couple of years to make people feel this way? Well, I've given it some serious thought, and I think it comes down to 4 main factors that are all doing their bit to amplify the apathy surrounding weapons. I've got good reason to believe that Destiny 2 has a serious weapons problem, and after this, you will too. You'll feel it whether you're on controller, mouse and keyboard, or even something more exotic like this video's sponsor, the ROG Ally. This tiny little thing is a fully
smooth.
There's just far too many weapons now in Destiny 2,
There's a lot of weapons in the game.
And most of them don't do much for anyone. 340 unique weapons have been added to the game since sunsetting was introduced for Beyond Light. 5 to 6 new or returning world drops, most of which served as alternatives to better.
And I can't stand the world drops. It's so hard to get these world drop weapons with good rolls because they're just so hard to target farm, but that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Nothing feels genuinely tanky or difficult outside of bosses. The only time you have to use certain weapons is to deal with champions, but that's not a difficulty thing, that's just a case of using the right keys for the right locks. Optimal DPS of course requires the right stuff, but most teams aren't optimal.
Thanks, bro.
Nor did they strive for it. They aim to get it done and get the loot. For raids, it's more the whole staying alive and communicating with your friends thing that's the problem. Also, having friends to begin with, but this isn't a free therapy session. Come to the Twitch stream every Tuesday and Thursday night for that. The only activities where weapon selection and loadouts make a real difference to your efficacy is in any master level content and endgame challenges. Master Lost Sectors, Contest and Master Raids, speedrunning, Grandmaster Nightfalls, and solo dungeon clears.
Champions, look away. Joe Blackburn, look away.
Experience that the vast majority of people playing this game will not clear or complete. There's no in-between when it comes to Destiny's difficulty. It's either way too easy or really hard.
I do often wonder how many players fall into what buckets of the Destiny 2 player experience. Because yeah, I do feel that like, even though I feel, I go flawless, whenever I do GM Nightfalls, I do raids. He's probably right that the vast majority of the average player might never complete a Grandmaster Nightfall. A lot of the average players of D2 may never complete a raid. There's probably people in our chat right now who have never done a single raid in D2 or have never even attempted to play in trials or something like that. I do wonder where the line gets drawn for a lot of players in the community. Just something I'm wondering. You've never done a Grandmaster. There you go. Case in point. You've never done a seasonal activity. I have never done a raid. Yeah. Hello, I am their guy. You've never done a GM or a raid. Sheesh. 6% of players have actually completed single Grandmaster. Wow.
A prime example of this is Necrochasm, which for all intents and purposes is an ad-clear monster.
Yes.
You get a precision kill with the weapon, the target explodes, and that explosion can cause a chain reaction.
My face.
It's a really fun and satisfying gameplay
Trying to be animated.
Which has very little downside when you factor in that auto rifles are some of the better primaries at the moment. Yet when I pointed this out in my review, the most common response was that Osteo Striga can do what Necrochasm can do with half the effort, Therefore,
True.
Necrochasm is a bad weapon.
Therefore, it's a bad weapon. Yeah, I mean, that's a not a great I mean, yeah, phrased poorly. Maybe it could be, I could understand if someone was like, hey, if Necrochasm does the same role, then why would I break my ass trying to get the raid exotic if they both kind of do the same role? I wouldn't say that therefore the raid role is trash or anything like that, but I would understand maybe the average player not wanting to jump through a bunch of hoops to get a raid exotic that maybe already has the role being filled by a different weapon. Although some people like getting raid weapons just to kind of sit like a trophy on the mantle and be like, yeah, I got that raid exotic. Fuck yeah, I got it. I've gotten every raid exotic in the game. You know what I mean? But yeah, he's right that you shouldn't dismiss some weapons so quickly just because, you know, they're very similar. I would agree with that.
Weapons are supposed to be fun to use above all else, aren't they? You wouldn't say In-N-Out is a bad burger joint because it's objectively worse than Culver's, would you? Well, maybe you would if you don't live on the West Coast or have taste buds, but I digress. For the last...
What the fuck is Culver's? I'm going to completely derail the entire point he's trying to make by pointing out that I have no fucking idea what a Culver's is. This is pretty good. Look at this. This is nice. Isn't he from the UK? I don't know what these little cheesy fried balls there are looking pretty goddamn dope.
It's worse for these reasons, so it's not worth using at all.
Bless you.
I refute
Bless
this
you.
argument, partially because it reinforces the concept of power creep, but also because if a gun feels good to use and does the job, it should be considered for use.
Exactly, which is why I love Thorn. Oh, but Fallout Ace of Spades is better in every way. Yeah, but Thorn is cool and badass and lore awesome and has cool visual design and it feels good and it's accurate and I like it and I really want the exotic catalyst. Oh, this gun's better. Yeah, but I like Thorn. Don't be a hater.
Unless you're doing the hardest content in the game, there's no reason to dismiss something for not being best in slot. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but from my perspective as a weapons reviewer, it does seem like the joy of loving weapons and shooting weapons is being lost to the wider audience. As long as builds and abilities are this potent, weapons and gunplay will remain secondary. As long as there's no middle ground in difficulty, the fun factor of guns will be secondary to their potency. And as long as 30 plus weapons come out every season, the likelihood of any of them being worth chasing is quite low. Together, all of these problems paint not an alarming picture, but certainly one that doesn't feel all that great. I don't think it's being done cynically or maliciously.
No, of course not.
It's just a byproduct of a lot of different things all coalescing to this point. But there's one...
It's just the byproduct of a game being a live service game for multiple years, and like it's going to have a problem with consistent power creep over and over. That's again why some people are now arguing that sunsetting should come back to make some kind of meaningful loot grind in the game, especially when just like you get one gun which is kind of best in slot and then people just kind of glue it to their hands and then just run it forever.
One more point I want to bring up that I think is worth mentioning, and it's a spicy one.
Oh,
PvP is the only place where weapons really matter.
Interesting. If he's saying that PvP is the only place where weapons truly matter, I'm going to disagree and say that I see the point that he's making, but in the vein of the point that he's making, you should also add PvE speedrunning and like low man PvE activities. So like if you're doing, because basically what he's saying, if you want to go do a low, like if any common regular PvE activity, it's fine. There's no stakes. It's fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like you just, you fail the activity, just run it back. It's not like going flawless or, you know, trying to hit max rank in comp, which are like really big, high stakes. But PvE speedrunning, there's high stakes in that. Yeah, they're kind of forged among the speedrunning community, but weapon choice really does matter in PvE speedrunning because you need to have a perfect loadout in order to shave enough time off your run that the run goes perfectly smoothly and you get like a world record run. Granted, that is a very, very, very niche section of the game. Not like a very tiny percent of people give a fuck about PvE speedrunning. Just wanted to throw that in there. I completely get what he's saying though.
Matter. In PvP, it does. The game is not a foregone conclusion just because you decide to run something that's off meta. I've already said a lot, and I don't want this to continue on with me becoming an armchair dev and giving out suggestions that are just not feasible. All I can do is give feedback. And my feedback is that in PvE at least, guns don't feel as fun to use anymore. I don't know what the solution is.
Me neither.
But I know there's a problem here. And I want to finish this video by handing it over to you. Do you think that Destiny 2 is more fun when weapons are the focus? Or do you prefer the ability spam power fantasy that we have right now? Is Destiny 2 losing its way with respect to being a shooter first?
I have no idea.
Would higher quality weapons at the cost of quantity solve the issue of loot being bad? Or would it accelerate power creep? Let me know your thoughts.
Those are really good questions.
As
I'm
ever,
not sure.
thank you so much for watching, and a big thanks to the patrons who continue to make these videos possible.
Very nice. Well done. Yeah, I am not sure what the answer is to that either. I think my priority has always been, and my enjoyment has always been kind of like weapon focus. I do enjoy some of the builds that have kind of evolved over time into PvE. I do enjoy that, but yeah, sometimes it does feel like on the PvE front that the weapons maybe fall back a little bit in priority for sure. Things like Banner of War Titan going hard. I don't know, but yeah, it's absolutely a interesting situation. Again, we come into situations where certain weapons just come in, they're best in slot, and they remain that way for a long time. And the weapon problem he's referring to, I kind of get it. Some new weapons come in, they're dead on arrival for a lot of people. But yeah, I don't know, that was an interesting watch.